USC and Michigan State. These are two Big Ten programs that needed to make big-time hires on their defensive coaching staff this offseason. And boy, did they do that on Sunday. Spartans and Trojans poised to make big-time improvements on defense in 2024.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
Both of these teams, the Cardinal and Gold of USC and the Green and White of Michigan State, have not been good on defense, and that is putting it nicely. That's the Minnesota nice coming out in me right now. Michigan State, even going back to that great 2021 season where they beat Michigan, where they won 11 games, where they won a New Year's Six game under Mel Tucker, that was one of the worst passing defenses in the Big Ten that season. Overall defenses as well, but specifically in terms of their secondary. USC, we know the story about them. Lincoln Riley brought Alex Grinch from Oklahoma over to USC, and that's the Grinch that stole USC's national championship and playoff hopes possibly in 2022, and then we all know what happened on defense in 2023, and we all know what happened to Alex Grinch being fired before this season came to a close. USC was soft. They couldn't get pressure. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't cover. They couldn't do much of anything on defense these last two seasons. These are two programs that needed to make a splash, that needed to make big-time coaching improvements on defense, and boy, have they done that. Let's start first with the Michigan State Spartans hiring now former Minnesota defensive coordinator Joe Rossi. Joe Rossi, when you got a healthy defense back there, when you've got all the pieces in place, he is one of the best coordinators in this conference. He can put together a fantastic defense, and the numbers really speak for themselves when you talk about Joe Rossi, who is an enormous improvement at defensive coordinator under Scotty Hazelton. Minnesota finished number 3 nationally in total defense in 2021. In 2022, they finished number 8 in total defense. Now, it did dip to number 53 this year. Injuries and just lack of depth throughout this entire defense, especially the secondary. At Minnesota this past year, once you got past Tyler Nubin and once you got past Justin Wally, the overall talent level and ability really dropped, and there's not much that Joe Rossi could really do with it this season. And I mentioned injuries. That's why you got the result that you did in Minneapolis, Minnesota this past year. But he's proven 3 of 5 years as the defensive coordinator at Minnesota, he's had a top 10 national defense. Like, ever since he took over as defensive coordinator, this thing overall at Minnesota really started to flip. And he's been able to develop players. I think it's obvious. Minnesota's not going out there. They're not getting 4 stars. They're not getting 5 stars, yet they're still developing some of the best defenses in the Big Ten and some of the best defenses in college football. And that's a credit to Joe Rossi being able to develop these guys, put the right guys in the right spots. I'm not sure if I'm creating any controversy here, but I think Michigan State can do a better job recruiting and bringing in better talent from the outset at Michigan State than at Minnesota. And that could possibly be an advantage for Joe Rossi to build even bigger and badder defenses at Michigan State. Here's, I think, some things to keep an eye on with this for Rossi. There's some decent young talent in East Lansing, Michigan right now. When you look at Jordan Hall, Jaden Mangum, Dylan Tatum, there's some players because of injuries that were 4-star type of guys, highly recruited guys that came in to Michigan State that have gotten on the field. Okay, have they taken their lumps? Sure, but having those learning experiences out of the way and having those game reps within the Big Ten, you got to think is going to help down the road. Now, of course, when you have a coaching change, you're going to lose some guys to the portal, the Zion Youngs, the Chris Bogles, the Derek Harmons of the world. But if Michigan State can find a way to keep those young guys that I mentioned, keep Cal Halliday and kind of some of these other pieces, half of this defense could be returning next season. And then you plug the holes with the transfers, this Michigan State team could make an improvement on defense. Actually, I expect them to make an improvement. It's just how much of an improvement that they can make on defense. I think Joe Rossi really brings it all together. And I really love what Jonathan Smith has done at Michigan State in his short time as the head coach, right? He's brought over a majority of his coaching staff, a really good coaching staff at Oregon State, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Now he's got that Midwestern Big Ten culture on the defensive side of the ball. I think a really good combination right now at Michigan State. I'm really excited. You could get Aiden Childs at quarterback, right? One of the top transfer quarterbacks, according to 24/7 Sports, now in the portal. Michigan State is one of those programs. Are they going to be a USC and Oregon, a Penn State, a Michigan, and Ohio State, a team like that on a yearly basis? Probably not. Could they hang around with the Iowas, with the Wisconsins, teams like that in that next tier? It's certainly possible. 7-9 wins, you jump up to a 10 win, something like that, get a playoff or maybe even contend for a Big Ten title. Maybe Joe Rossi is one of those pieces for Michigan State to really hang in that area. I really love what's happening right now at Michigan State. You got to talk about it from the Minnesota point of view as well. Minnesota over the last handful of years, really since Joe Rossi has been there, ever since 2019, the Gophers have been built really on two things: running the ball and stopping the run / playing really good defense. Take 50% of that, and now it's headed over to the state of Michigan at Michigan State University. Joe Rossi has been a big part of Minnesota's success, especially in 2021 and 2022. Of course, they dropped down to 5 wins this season. This Minnesota team, really ever since that 2019 team, they haven't been good on the offensive side of the ball. Tanner Morgan, we all know what happened there, right? Ethan Kaliak-Manis took over. And now Ethan, one full of year of starting, and he's in the transfer portal. I know they've been good in the run game with guys like Muhammad Ibrahim and now true freshman Darius Taylor. I get that. But this defense in 2021 and 2022 was a big part of their success those 2 years. Top 10 nationally ranked defenses, one of the Big Ten's best defenses those years. And you're taking that chunk away. I think that's going to be a bigger loss at Minnesota than maybe some people realize. I know you went out in the portal. You got a good quarterback in Max Brosmer. I know you got Darius Taylor coming back. I know you got Daniel Jackson coming back. I get that. But Joe Rossi was a big part to the success of the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Let's go over to a new member. Boy, did they need to improve on the defensive side of the football. And so far, Lincoln Riley is not messing around. He went out and got the defensive coordinator from across town that produced the #1 rush defense in America, D'Anton Lynn, from UCLA to USC. That was big hire #1, and big hire #2 happened on Sunday, when they hired current North Dakota State head coach Matt Entz to be their linebackers coach and assistant head coach for defense. I spent about 1.5 or 2 years around this North Dakota State program. And what I can tell you is this is a great hire. Props to you, Lincoln Riley, for pulling this guy out of Fargo, North Dakota, and the success he's been able to have as a head coach at that great program and bringing him into LA to be a position coach. His track record really speaks for itself as a head coach. First Craig Bohl, then Chris Kleiman. Matt Entz took over for Chris Kleiman in 2019 as the head coach of this program, and he's as good as it gets right now. He really embodies what North Dakota State is all about. The toughness, the physicality, the defense. That's what they've built that really successful FCS program around. Coach of the year in 2019 and 2021. But if you think Entz is just a product of the NDSU system, you better check yourself. Prior to arriving at NDSU, Entz served as the associate head coach, co-DC, and D-line coach at Western Illinois. The Leathernecks led the Missouri Valley, that's the conference that North Dakota State plays in passing defense and opponent first downs as well. Then you go back, he was the defensive coordinator at Division II Winona State from 2002 to 2009, where he was named the AFCA Division II Assistant Coach of the Year in 2008. So no matter which way you slice it, this man is going to be able to come in, bring that Midwestern attitude, that toughness, that bring your lunch pail to work attitude that you find in that classic traditional Big Ten footprint, and bring that into USC where they absolutely desperately need it. Look, being around that program, North Dakota State just doesn't bring in anybody to come into this great program. So bringing in a guy like Matt Entz that had connections with the staff at the time at North Dakota State, they knew he was good. They knew what he could do on the defensive side of the football. He'd proven it throughout his coaching journey. And now for USC to grab him away from being a head coach at this type of level is amazing right now. I want to throw you a little bit of a factoid that I think is very interesting as it pertains to the Big Ten right now. When Matt Entz was first hired as the head coach in 2019 at NDSU, he needed a defensive coordinator because he got promoted from DC, so obviously there was an opening there. You know who his first hire was? David Braun. That David Braun. And now, David Braun is a head coach, probably did the best coaching job in America at Northwestern. He's a head coach at Northwestern in the Big Ten. And now Matt Entz, the guy who hired Braun at NDSU, 5 years ago, is now a position coach in the Big Ten. Oh, how the turntables have turned right within these two guys. But Matt is going to bring that win. I think there's something to be said about what he's experienced in that program at NDSU. It's been proven. Guys that come through there. Craig Bull went on to Wyoming and had a great career over there. He just retired. Chris Kleiman, look what he's done at Kansas State. Look at what David Braun has done in the most difficult position in college football, turning Northwestern from 1 win to 7 wins. A team that couldn't tackle well, they're going to tackle. Matt Entz is going to expect them to tackle. And D'Anton Lynn, coming over as the defensive coordinator, I have a good feeling that USC is going to take major strides in the front seven. Lynn and UCLA were really good up front. And then, of course, Entz coming in at the linebacker position. I believe they're going to take major steps forward in that department on that side of the football. D'Anton Lynn spent a lot of time, all of the time, coaching in the NFL before becoming the defensive coordinator at UCLA this past year. So what about in the future if Lynn puts together a really good year, a really good couple of years at USC, and he decides to be an NFL defensive coordinator? You got a guy that can step into that DC role right away in Matt Entz. I really love what the USC Trojans have done with this. Joe Rossi, really good hire. Matt Entz, a really good hire. Michigan State and USC, folks. These are two teams that are going to improve on the defensive side of the football in 2024.
Thanks for watching Big Ten TED, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten TED to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.